happy to be here with all these powerful women to my right and the powerful gentleman over there, far right. Definitely a topic that we have to get into today. And workforce development is key to how we move forward in the territory. We always want to talk about who we're bringing in, but if we don't create options to grow what's here, we'll be bringing in. Right?
Let's start there. You know, we had dinner the other night. You had a young man there with you. Tell us about mentorship and how do we get young people energized and interested in joining the workforce?
So I think that we've been trying to go about this the wrong way with this generation. First of all, we're still trying to do everything kind of like a analog type of approach to it. And if we're going to approach this generation, then we need to do something digital with them. So at least, even if it's a hands-on training, the initial interaction with them has to be electronic. And we keep trying to have these workshops and open houses and different things where they have to come in person to get the ball rolling. That this generation doesn't operate like that.
Right.
We have to reach them on an electronic forum, get them interested, get them wanting to participate. We need the employer to understand that and take that approach with them. We have to stop looking for the person that's going to work 40 years to retirement. That doesn't happen with this generation. We got to keep them interested. We have to foster how they grow. It's like the old adage of if you come to me and you're trying to entice me to do something for you and you offer me a steak dinner, you've lost. I don't eat meat, right? Yeah. So if you don't know someone and know what drives them, how do you entice them to do different or better or get them encouraged?
There's like 100 conversations in that. You know, Chairman Cardi in St. Croix, it stuck with me. That's to see how good you are. He said 3 things: make a promise to yourself that you're going to do something, make a promise to somebody that you're going to do something for them, and make a promise, get somebody to make you a promise that you're going to help you. So tell your kid, I'm going to take care of you. I'm committed to doing that. Tell yourself, I'm committed to taking care of my kid and myself, so I'm going to do whatever it takes to do that. And then get somebody to say they commit to you. What, you know, when you look at today, though, it's like what you say. We offering steak and they're vegetarians. Well, I mean, like, but how do we mix that up? I mean, people, like, I'm at a loss because, you know, not only when we it's hard to get people interested in there, when they get there, they're totally frustrated because they don't like rules. They don't want to come in every day. They want to work from homes. What do you think some of those strategies are? Anybody on the panel?
Well, I think one of the things that we don't do, and this would be in conjunction with the digital approach, is that each of us needs to be in a classroom in our education system for a minimum of an hour or 2 a week. That's all it takes. Pay attention to our young people. I am a classroom volunteer. I am a mentor. People around me are mentors. And I see today kids that I mentored when they were in 4th grade coming back to me, looking for jobs, getting help, going to college, graduating, and coming home. But we must start by paying attention to them digitally and personally. We each have to make a commitment to spend time in our classrooms because our kids think we don't care about them because we're not there for them.
That's huge. You know, it was so funny. I know Charlene is in here somewhere. You know, when kids thrive, but they can only thrive to what they're exposed to. So you know, when we did summer jobs and we asked kids what they want to be in St. John, everybody wanted to work on a ferry boat. Everybody wanted to work on a ferry boat. And I remember your story. I think stick in my head, Hugo, meeting Jolito Francis, who was working at WAP at the time when you toured in high school. So I think that is very attractive, what you're talking about. But the vehicles, I got a shameless plug-in for Junior Achievement. Sadie, you could tell us about Junior Achievement and how we engage people, because in the classroom, because people say, I want to go to school, But how do I do that? Do I go to the commissioner? Do I go to the superintendent? Is that something of the principal or the teacher? Tell us about that a little bit. You served on the board.
Yes, I did, and for about 5 years. And it was the best part for me was actually being in the classroom, as Attorney Dudley said. You have to be able to show that commitment, and you're going to get that response from the students. Junior achievement was financial literacy, basically, for the most part, which no matter what job you're going to take, that's a key component. I agree with Hugo on the digital side. I don't know that we had that opportunity at the time, but to combine the digital age plus the hands-on that we did with junior achievement, I think that would be the key to moving forward. Because at the end of the day, even if I don't want to go to college and I want to start a business or go to a trade, and I don't know the basic math or the basic accounting skills that I need to be able to run my business, I'm not going to be successful.
Right.
So all of these play a part in that. Just want to touch quickly on, the hotel industry, the hospitality industries. It's a little bit harder to do digital, particularly with the front of the house roles that we have. But I've been working with both high schools, and they have a great program, the hospitality program, that I think we really need to pay a little bit more attention to. They have about 80 students at each school right now this year enrolled from 9 through 12. Each high school. It's one thing to make a donation and get them the tools that they need, but they really need hands-on. So they need to be able to go and mentor, go to a hotel, go to a restaurant, go to a bar, go to somewhere that they can actually practice and see the experts at work and take those skills back.
That is excellent. So you listening out there, we need opportunities for hands-on experiences. And Dr. George, I'm the only governor of the Virgin Islands that is a UVI alumni. Let me put it out there. Pretty proud about that. But my frustration with the university over the years is, how do we get it more student-centered, and how do we get students more engaged with what's going on actually in the community? So for some things like nursing and teaching, there are clear pathways, but like the other ones, like criminal justice and some of those, are not as clear. I would like to see more participation, more activity at the university that corresponds with what goes on in our community. Any thoughts on that?
I think you've been in my head and my thoughts. And so one of the things that I've shared with our internal UVI community is that as an alum myself, I had a great experience at UVI, right? My program was nursing. And so my priority is students first, right? And in doing that, connecting with students and identifying what matters most to them inside the classroom is very powerful, but I think outside the classroom for me is even more powerful. And so you started us off talking about the idea of mentorship. And so I work very closely, for example, with our Student Government Association leaders on both campuses together, right? Because we are one campus. And sort of hearing from them the thoughts that they have, the frustrations that they have, and the ways that they want to make a difference in our local UVI community, as well as in the broad USVI territory community. And so really hearing from them directly, right? Because I, as president, can come and say, I think we should do X, Y, or Z, but hearing directly from and partnering with our students is the only way to do it. And an extension of that is also working with, as some of my panelists have said, with the schools, in ways that are mutually beneficial.
Right.
I think too many universities look at the community as a source for recruitment. And my approach is looking at a community as a source for mutually beneficial partnerships. How can we genuinely partner with teachers, organizations, Boys and Girls Club, FBLA, 4-H, whomever, the departments of the government, industry, tourism, all sectors. Not only should programs that have formal internships be in the community, but there are opportunities for all of our students to be doing things in all of your organizations, in all of your offices, but they just need to be given a chance to be able to do that. And our role as administrators and as faculty is to help leverage those partnerships so that students can have those opportunities. For example, something as simple as, our SGA leaders, right? They're committed to doing their best as becoming, because they're our future leaders. Well, let's face it, the students in K through 12, as well as in university right now, they are our future leaders. In 20 years, our next governors, our next CEOs. So we have to invest in them now and really giving them a seat at the table. So for example, our vice president of SGA is now helping out in my office and giving ideas and sort of just having some hands-on experience, because the hands-on experience is the only way they'll be able to apply what they learn, what their potentials are. And so, but we just have to have students to have a seat at the table so that they can share what matters most to them.
It's amazing too. I mean, and that's a struggle. I like the panel so much, I get so caught up in the conversation, I forget what the next question is. One of the things I think is important as we move into sort of an adaptation of the Virgin Islands, because if the one thing you could say about the Virgin Islands in the last 7 years, it has been incredible fast-paced change and adaptation, whether it's resiliency from the storms, adapting to COVID, adjusting to post-COVID, getting used to the inflation rate and everything else that's going on. You know, how do we now create a workforce that engages these students so that we could share what we have learned as people who are older, let's use that, and still allow them to insert their message, because that's the part of the thing that's the toughest for them. And then also about creativity and risk, because when you're creative, you have to take chances. And these students are taking chances in creativity. How receptive is our community to creativity and risk? You're not looking at you, right?
I mean, not very, to be honest.
Not very what? I want you to
not very receptive to creativity and risk. We're very risk averse, and we're not gonna. But leadership isn't about what's comfortable to the community. So leadership.
Can I get an amen? We went to the same school, you know. Leadership is not about what's comfortable to the community. That's what you call parrotship is.
Right.
Comfortable to the community. When you parrot everything the community say, oh my God.
but it's we have to lead in that manner. We have to do what we have access to information that the average citizen does not have. We have to take that information that we have and make decisions that's in the best interest of everyone. I mean, look, we have to plan for tomorrow today, right? So I'll give a mindset example. Where's Janine? I know I saw Janine earlier, and she'll like this one. There's a mindset example. So let's say I want to introduce robotics to something right now. Some people are going to say, I'm taking away jobs.
Absolutely.
Why isn't the mindset, why not prepare these youth right now to be programmers of robotics in the future, so that that part of it is still being handled by those in our community? And if we don't think along those lines to plan for tomorrow today, then we're going to continue down the same path. You know? So I think the mindset is a big component of it.
It is huge.
And let me add something to that. And that is, at the same time as we're talking, we need to be listening. Another issue with our youth is that they don't feel we listen to them. So that when we're communicating, we cannot effectively communicate unless we are speaking the same language. We're meeting them where they are, so that they want to be where we are. And we have to respect their diversity of thought and of mindset. And if their mindset is exactly what you're saying, Hugo, which is that, well, I don't know about that. Well, if we're talking about digitally inclined youth, then yes, they're going to be interested in programming robotics. They're not going to see robotics as something that's going to take jobs away, because they've never been exposed to that way of thinking.
Listening and risk. So I run into this problem with young people, challenge, that problem. Because I've listened to you, and I'm saying this for the young people out there in the workplace, wherever you are, doesn't mean I'm going to do what you say. So when you opine, you give an idea, you're taking a risk of making yourself vulnerable to what other people have to say about the idea, right? So in taking that risk, you have to be open enough to understand, maybe I don't understand enough about this situation, and maybe everything I say will not be implemented. And it's a risk on the other side, because when you tell somebody, I want to hear your ideas, you can't shoot down everything. and tell the person they don't know anything. So that's risk again, but creativity and risk in the workplace. I want to keep on with that. Any thoughts, Sadie or Dr. George?
So some of you know that we're currently engaged at the university in a strategic planning process. And how many of you have attended any of our sessions that we've offered? So our goal is to collectively create a shared vision for what the University of the Virgin Islands is to our entire Virgin Islands community. And in that process, it's a different process than perhaps many are used to. It's using agile strategic planning. And my approach is including everybody and anybody who wants to give input. Employers, alums, government officials, we're coming to you as well, Governor. Everyone, every island. Today we're going to St. John, yesterday we went to St. Croix, so that we can have this collective vision for who our local university can become in the next 20 years, in the next 2 years. But as part of that approach, there's a segment of it where we develop 2-quarter projects, right? Because we know most strategic plans stay on the shelf, right? They look good, they look pretty, they have goals and objectives, but you forget about it, right? And you pick it up again in 5 years when it's time to, renew it. But in this process, you have buy-in from stakeholders, and the ideas come from the community, from the bottom, not me as the head saying, this is what thou shalt do, but instead collectively we come up with these ideas. And within these 2-quarter projects, the goal is to come up with small experiments, right? That a collective community can say, you know what, what about if we could do this or try this? It's sort of eating the elephant one bite at a time, small, quick projects or experiments, but they are risks, right? Some of those experiments might fail, but we learn from them, right? We allow people the opportunity to experiment, to innovate, to ideate, to dabble with creativity, to see how we can collectively come up with solutions. And there's a lot of learning that happens from that. There's a lot of rapid cycle improvements that happen from that. And there are a lot of small wins. And if you do the math, small wins multiplied, added up, equal big wins. And so that's creating that culture of innovation, creativity, and collective buy-in is the approach that we're taking now to make the University of the Virgin Islands destination education #1, because we're the only and #1 HBCU in the Caribbean. And we want to showcase, of course, the VI territory to the world. And that's just our small way of doing that with your help and your input. But it all takes us collectively working together to be creative, to identify these solutions.
I love that
That's
destination education. We want to make UVI the #1 HBCU on the planet.
On the planet.
Because we don't give ourselves any credit, right? But this is it was the only HBCU that gave free tuition in the country. And now it's the only HBCU that not only gives a free education, but now you could go part-time and still get your classes for free. I mean, that's for a country, division, region, territory, that's an incredible accomplishment. Barack Obama said like 15 years ago that you have to be able to give people the enough education that they need to survive in the community, right? So we should have free universal college education, because you can't make it on a high school education salary anymore. So we've done it. We've done it here in the Virgin Islands. So we definitely appreciate the people that are taking advantage of that. One time somebody told me that our community, you go say on this topic?
I was just going to add to what.
Go ahead.
Just to add what I think the small wins are the big takeaway here,
Yeah.
because we need to celebrate the wins now and in the moment, especially with the younger generation who are so used to immediate gratification with the internet and other things. If they're not seeing progress, they're disenfranchised, they get frustrated. They say, oh, you people don't know what you're doing. Vision 2040 was an excellent document, a 300-page monster that had a lot of great information in it, but I'm not sure we're celebrating the small wins when it comes to those.
We're not, but because we're not focused on winning, right? Our media message and what we like is negative. So if we really pay attention, we are making some wins. But everybody know I like to brag about winning. Not only winning for me, but winning for the Virgin Islands. I like being the best. I don't want a participation trophy. Like my daughter told me one time, she came in second in the spelling bee, didn't tell me. I said, why didn't you tell me? She said, I'm not bragging about losing. Failure.
Mhm.
Somebody told me once that the biggest problem with our community is we are afraid to fail, individually
Yes.
and as a whole. Any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. In fact, we can't learn if we don't fail. That's what all children learn. That's what adults learn. We don't like to admit it, but when we fail, we learn because we don't make that same mistake again, and we are willing to be humble and learn from others. I am so excited about what you're saying about the university and the way it wants to interact and interface with the community. And a lot of us have not given as much as we can or should to our university. And we should get in there and give Dr. George our ideas and be willing to participate in these planning sessions because we're going to have to take risks. Our community has suffered so much.
So much.
And if we don't take risks moving forward, we're going to be stuck. And we have to be willing to take those chances. And the chances are going to be huge because here we are faced with lots of federal money. What are we doing with it?
Right.
Are we going to build the projects that are truly resilient? Are we going to take the chance to learn about what resiliency really means? And what does it mean for us personally? Can we indeed be resilient? We harden and learn from failing.
Thank you. I love that. We have to learn. Once again, we don't give ourselves enough credit. This is a resilient community. If you don't believe, you can fly to Florida or any one of them places where a hurricane hit and see how people spinning our clock like they don't know what to do right now because this is shut down, this isn't shut down. Now, when you get up in the morning, we go into action, we take the lid off the system, start bailing water, take a shower, and then keep moving. Failure.
You know, this is like soapbox material, right? And we have a certain segment of our population that is so talented that they actually disguise wins as failure. And if we aren't paying enough attention, we fall into the
Wait,
mindset.
You getting so deep on me, brother. Is this that great band and stuff? You acting like a swami. Disguise. Say that again.
That disguise wins as failure. So you have a certain group of people that actually sit down and have created a spectator sport called rooting for somebody's demise. And
Wow.
they do so in a manner and they present things that if you're not paying attention, you start to believe that they are failures. But if you dig deep and look at it, it's wins that's being disguised as failure in our community. And sometimes I
give me one, man.
I give you 10. But I can get, for me personally, right? I'll go to the LPG project.
Yes, that's a good one.
We had a project here that started in 2008 where oil was at $150 a barrel. Every expert in the world said it's going to be $200 a barrel. So we needed to move expediently. The LEAC at that time was 41 cents. We said it's going to be reduced by 30%. The LEAC today is 20 cents. The base rate may have gone up and other things in the bill have gone up, but the portion for that project was not 30% reduced, it was 50% reduced. Actually, it was more than 50% because it was 18 and 17 cents for a
Y'all
long
understand
time,
what he's saying, right?
right?
This is what they don't tell you in the press. You gotta
So-
listen close.
You keep hearing about this project at our local paper paints it as this failed project and this, that, and the other, and you keep hearing this commentary about it. And I laugh. I laugh because I sleep well at night. I don't even listen to the noise and the nonsense because every other country is bringing you all over the world to talk about how you did it because they want to do it. But here locally, it's painted as such. And I wonder if people are going to one day pay attention to what they're being told and stop digesting nonsense. Because if a project doubles what it says it's going to do,
Right.
it's a success.
Right.
If in fact, if you look at the number one mark of success for a project is return on investment. Have you ever heard someone discuss return on investment on that project?
Never.
Never. You know why? Because that's not the picture they want to paint. That project paid for itself in less than 3 years.
But that's interesting. That's how people disguise. I love that. I
Perception,
really don't.
perception.
It is perception, and
Perception.
I could name you a couple of Diageo. It's the same thing. You know, we without Diageo, we couldn't have saved the retirement system because it's the same rum cover of money that we used from that project to pay off the retirement system. And when it was launched, people were saying, "Oh, this is the most terrible thing in the world." West Indian Company. A lot of people were saying it was a terrible idea for the government to go ahead and buy West Indian Company and the mob at the time, right?
Yes.
So risk again. You know, one of the things that I like to say is taking a risk on employees.
Definitely.
Tell us about your experience with that and taking that risk, because success in the Virgin Islands doesn't look like how it does in the States. Because you might have an employee come to you, they hear out, shock out, they got on short pants. They ain't really talking like, you know, the matter go hook it up for you, your check. But then you put them to do the job and they're like doing an excellent job. They're like, wow, like why aren't you where you need to be?
Let me tell you a story about that. I used to have a partner, Elizabeth Clark. When she came to my office one day, she had come off a charter boat. She was a lawyer, but she'd come off a charter boat. She walked in Bermuda shorts and flip-flops and a t-shirt. And the t-shirt had a big stain on the left side. But she'd been told that I would be a good person for her to come and work with. So I sat and I talked with her and I said, you know, this woman is really smart. You can't judge by appearances. And I should tell you, some of my best clients walk in stained t-shirts, Bermuda shorts, and flip-flops. The guys that show up in the suits and ties, sometimes they're the worst.
The charlatans.
Anyway, Elizabeth became my partner. And that night, I said, let me call around and see who she really is. So I called the person that she'd worked for. And he said, where is she? We're trying to find her. She disappeared on a boat somewhere. I said, gee, I'm not really sure. I called her right up and said, can you start at 8:30 tomorrow morning? And she did. And we were great partners, and may she rest in peace. But taking a risk on a kid, for example, I've taken risks with kids from Charlotte Amalia. In fact, I have a couple of Charlotte Amalia graduates with me right now, and one from Eudora Ken. I'm proud to say I have employees who've been with me for 30 and 40 years because they know I took a chance on them. And they took a chance on me too, because at the time I was just starting out. So that's what we have to think about. Yes, we're taking a risk, but it's worth the risk, because when you show someone that you truly care, when you show someone that you're willing to invest the time it takes to sit down with that person, like teaching kids to read. It's very hard to teach kids to read, but once they can read a paragraph on their own, their eyes light up like a Christmas tree. They're so thrilled. Wow, Miss Dudley, thank you so much. And then they go on and do other things, and then they come back to you later and say, you know, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. That's what we have to think about when we think about workforce development. We can't develop a workforce if we're not willing to go in there and take a chance on kids that don't look like they have any interest in working at all. It's a question of meeting them where they are and be willing to take that chance.
Sadie, risk, you got what, like 500 employees? How much employees work for you?
Change.
Five and change. Risk.
And
you know
growing.
about risk.
Yeah. So I
Bites you
think
in
it
the butt
goes,
sometimes.
it goes back to meeting them where they're at. I think you said that earlier. And to Hugo's point about the digital age, you know, the leaders, the middle management that we have in certain organizations don't necessarily have that mindset. And I think we need to start there. And
Say that
have-
again. Everybody to blame it on the top.
No,
Yeah.
I think it's because the middle management is who really has that day-to-day interaction, right? So with the other associates. And the insecurity of being replaced. Thank you.
Right.
So there's all this going on in their head, and they're not taking the time to really meet that other person where they're at, see what the talents and the strengths are, and then help them to maybe, you know, if they're a little rough around the edges, you can work with them in that way. But you have to be able to have that emotional intelligence to be able to recognize it and how to move forward with it.
Because in a lot of, you know, it's the Virgin Islands is one complete community, but there's a lot of societies in the community.
Definitely.
In some communities, it's okay to spark up. Y'all know what sparking up is? Ball up a joint. In some people's communities, they sit down in the house and they do that like that's normal. In other people's community, it's not. You know, we have some things that are staples throughout our community, no matter who you are. Good morning, you can try it. The roughest looking hood man you could see, or hood woman, say good morning. They say it back to you. Our parents and our grandparents were very successful. They set out to raise a middle class of Virgin Islands, middle class, through government work dedication and get people to work for 30 years and retire. It worked. What is our strategy now, or what should it be?
One thing I will say is the concept of social mobility. And I think education, especially higher education, is one of the greatest keys to social mobility. And when I talk about social mobility, what I mean is the concept of, for example, my mother had an associate's degree from UVI. That inspired me to attend UVI. And so when one person in a family gets a college education, that automatically increases your socioeconomic status and standing for that family. And then for the even more extended family, and eventually to the community. So the idea of using education to increase knowledge, to increase skills, you talked about networking in your speech, to increase your network, even your social network, who your friends are, who you spend time with, who your colleagues are, that increases the income, the resources, the connections within that person's sphere and reach, and that elevates a community.
And the mindset.
And the mindset, that growth mindset,
Yes.
right? And so, of course, as an educator, that is one of the keys that we aspire to use, to leverage, to invest in our young people, to help them and their families elevate and increase their social mobility. Because as we educate our population here in the Virgin Islands, as more of us become educated, there's so much more we can do. And I'm not saying that every single person needs a college education. I'm not going to sit here and say that. But every person does need whatever that skill is, whatever that trade is, whatever that talent is, so that they can capitalize on that, so that they can move forward for their families, their business, their community. And together, you know, minds coming together, we can do so much more.
Wow.
But the concept of social mobility is key, and education is a solution to social mobility.
Hugo, you remember Dr. George in class? So we all think like pretty much alike. I think it's because it makes sense, people, when you're exposed. You know, my mindset behind the Virgin Islands is like, let's expose every kid to as much as possible, because you never know what they're capable of unless they're exposed to it. And a mindset of mobility is like, who you going home to? The difference between telling you, listen, I got a bad grade in school today. You know, there's a difference between going home and somebody saying, okay, what did you do wrong? How can you study better? Did you talk to the teacher? And somebody say, and later for that school thing, go fry some fish, you won't get a job with the governor.
Let's not forget our plumbers and electricians,
Absolutely.
however. They make more than some college educated people. One of the things I think that we should think about doing particularly in terms of social mobility, is trying to get our workforce that's already successful, including our plumbers and electricians, including our college graduates, is going and talking to the kids. It takes you right back to going back into the schools, into the neighborhoods, into housing communities, and meeting with resident councils, for example, and talking about the kinds of possibilities that exist. A lot of people don't know about the workforce needs that we have. They don't understand that we're desperate for good people, and they don't have to be necessarily skilled one way or the other. We can train them, but they have to be motivated. And we've got to get out there and let them know our needs.
I'm glad you said that, because the other thing there too, right, is I'm looking at the opportunities before me. Yeah, college ain't for everybody. But the people in the vocational side have their own growing to do and have their own social circles to create, because we're in a situation now, if you look at all our big contractors, GEC, Benton, Jay Benton, we had James up here yesterday, custom builders, who else is another one? I think that's about
Lamar
it. Huh?
Lamar Tech.
Lamar Tech, well, I'm talking about the traditional ones that
Oh,
have
the
been here for a
traditionals.
long time.
Mhm.
They're partnering up with bigger companies in order to be able to participate in what's coming, because the collective bonding power of the Virgin Islands construction community couldn't bond the hospital, or probably not any of the schools. Now, the small time contractor, electrician, plumber, they too need to become business minded. And that means either partnering up with somebody who went to college and doing that for them. It means that now you have to go out and you have to socialize, because that's important too, right? With people who are doing things in business, because there are a lot of good people in this community that I see. They're good at certain stuff. They bake cakes, they do plumbing, they fix TVs, but they're terrible business people. Talk about your expansion and in blossoming and partnering. And I put not a business out there, but
So I have a few business.
I know.
ventures, and I think you're speaking about the solar one.
You can pick anyone you want.
I look for the right partner, because you need someone to complement whatever your shortcomings are. And you have to first identify what your shortcomings are. You can't be to the point where you don't believe you have any.
I'm gonna start calling you guru today. Say that again. You got to identify your shortcomings and find somebody that complements that.
Right. I mean, it's like, so I found the right partner, and we complement each other, and we formed a business here, a joint venture. So we're doing some solar initiatives and whatnot in the territory, and we're hiring some young folks to work and learn to not just be installers, but project managers. And you know, I came to the meeting and I brought a young man with me that's going to be a project manager. He may not know it yet, but he's going to be one.
Yeah,
You know,
and
so-
you know, he just looked like a regular dude. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't engaging that much in the conversation, but I saw you trying to pull him in.
Gotta
That's the
pull him
kind
in.
of mentorship and exposure we have to take a chance and give people.
But organizationally, we have to look at the messages we send as well.
Right.
So I look at a corporate structure of an entity, and it may seem simple to some, but just think about it. If I look at your corporate structure, and you have HR reporting to the CFO or to finance, what are you telling your human resources? What are you telling your employees the importance of human resources is? Why wouldn't human resources be on par with the CFO reporting to the CEO?
Absolutely.
And if you don't do something as simple as moving that HR function to something on par with your other C-suite level positions or departments, then you're sending a different message to people that's looking at your organization. If I look at it and I see that, I'm already thinking a certain way when I look at the company. And I'm gonna put that in the back of my mind and decide how I'm gonna deal with this company a certain way. And we have to, if human resource isn't our number one focus, if you're, I don't know, if you can't do 500 jobs. I can't do 600 jobs. I can't even do 5 right now, right? So we have to have people that want to work for us, and they have to feel like you genuinely care about their well-being and their success.
Right.
Right?
On every level. Sadie, you look like you were
Yeah.
chomping at the bit to say something.
Can I say preach?
Yeah.
Being in HR, I think that's it. The HR has to have the seat at the table. And I know that we've come a long way, and all of my HR professionals out there will know we've come a long way from just being personnel, although Governor, we got to work on
Yeah,
division of
I've been trying to get the legislature to change the name of personnel. It's
Okay.
a terrible name.
But to have a true seat at the table, as Hugo said, because without the employees, there is no business.
Right. And I think even more so in this generation, they want to know you care. They want to know you care. And, you know, we come from the generation where, like, you come to work, not to be comfortable. It's like we have a whole generation of people that wants to be comfortable and enjoy work. Strange it is, but this is what's coming. Strategy. How are we as a territory at planning and strategy? And what do you think we need to? Well, you mentioned the 40-year plan, vision, 20-year plan, vision 2040. I think it's good that it brings focus, and I'm hoping that it leapfrogs. But the vision changes all the time. How we get a strategy?
Well, I think one of the first elements is taking groups from the government itself. And going out into our schools and into our communities and talking about exactly what it is that you're doing and what your needs are. And saying, look, if you can come and join, we care about your work-life balance, we care about this, we care, whatever the particular issues are,
Right.
that you care about that. Because I was in a meeting
To Mike.
once. Sorry, thank you. I was in a meeting and someone asked, how many people here are unhappy with their supervisors? Everybody raised his or her hand, which was really sad. So we have to take some of our middle managers out into the community and talk about what it is our agencies do, why we're doing it, what it pays, what it means, because people really are so critical of government because they don't understand how hard people in government work. This is another issue of strategy, education. We've got to be telling people what we're doing, how we're doing it, what we're accomplishing, where we're not accomplishing it, and saying, yes, we failed there, but look what we learned.
We had a cabinet retreat last week or week before on a Saturday, and every department was given 5 minutes to tell what they're doing, right? At the end of it, everybody was surprised at what everybody else was doing.
Exactly.
They were like, I didn't know that much was going on. There's so much going on, though. The messaging is difficult. I mean, I get a lot of the messages, but the messaging is difficult. So, how do you get to somebody who flicks through TikTok 100 times a
Text
day?
messages, TikTok messages, social media.
We're trying that
That's
now.
that's how you've got to do it. Not just a Facebook page.
I think one of I had a boss one time and he told me, he said, the reason why we don't do better is because environmentally, we're not forced to plan. Every day is the same. He said in the States, if you don't plant in the spring, you starve in the winter. It's a very rigid course. So environmentally, we have not been taught to plan. And you see that not only on a strategic level or territory-wide, but you see it on an individual level. Because we could have the most resilient buildings in the world. If we continue with a 30%, 35% poverty rate, we're in trouble because those people get poorer every day. Tell us about your personal plan, if you personally plan, and how it has affected your life. Because I mean, you guys are really successful people.
Well, you have to plan for the future. For example, what clientele am I interested in having?
Right.
What kind of people do I need to serve them? What sort of education, continuing legal education and other kinds of education do we need? What sorts of people do I need to attract? And that means I have a 5-year plan, I have a 10-year plan. Do I ever plan to retire? No, I'm going to die at my desk.
Me too.
I don't have a choice. I can't afford to retire.
That's another big thing that people don't realize.
That you have to be able to afford to retire.
Yeah.
But the idea is to look at what you expect, what you want, and then move your needs and your resources, plan your needs and resources to meet what it is your goal is.
Did you plan to be back here, Dr. George? Is it in the plan or is like?
I've always wanted to return, of course, to the Virgin Islands. I love the Virgin Islands, right? I'm a Virgin Islander. But I didn't want to just return for the sake of returning, or I didn't want to wait per se till retirement to return. I wanted to be able to give back. And I know that sounds cliche. A lot of people might say that, but this opportunity provided me with a unique space to give back in a way that I felt would matter most to our community. So I have a lot of sort of ideas and goals. And of course, I'm blending those with what I'm hearing from the community as well. But as you know, we have a lot of needs in our community around, of course, education, workforce, healthcare, public health, infrastructure, energy. And I saw the university as a resource for our community,
Absolutely.
right? Our greatest assets at UVI are our amazing employees, many of who've been there for 20, 30, 40 plus years. Combining that with the students that are coming in, who, as I already mentioned, will be the next generation of leaders. But I've learned a lot in my career. And although I've had many successes, what I've learned from the most is failure.
Oh.
So for example, people would say, oh my gosh, I look at your CV and it's, I don't know, 38 pages, 39, I'm not sure how long. And you've been successful with grants. I've won or secured several grants, millions dollar plus in grants. But what people don't know is, for example, in 1 year, and I'm a scientist, right? In 1 year, I submitted 15 grants, but I only secured 6. But people say, oh my gosh, you got 6 grants. And I tell people, that sounds good, but I wrote 15. So I was denied more than I got.
You gain an F.
Gain an F.
But
Right? More denials than wins, but you learn from the denials, right? You learn. I can celebrate those successes, but I learn more from the failures. And so as I mentor young people, when you don't move because you're paralyzed by fear or insecurity or the thought of failure, when you do the math, if you don't try, 0 out of 0 equals 0.
0.
Right? That's
If
the
you don't
most
try.
basic math people need to understand. If you don't move, you don't move. But if you at least try, even if you try 2 times and you get 1 out of 2, 50% is better than 0. And the other thing is collaboration, right? And many times we want 100% of something, but it's better to share and collaborate with someone else and get 50% of that X than to get 0% or 100% of 0. And so the idea of collaboration and your willingness to bring others along with the journey, I think a lot of times, not just in our community, but in America in general, we have the crab in the barrels mentality. My approach, honestly, is collaborative, right? I like taking others along the journey with me. I like mentoring in others. I love students because the diversity of ideas, the diversity of experiences that we share, and the diversity of sharing the positives, the negatives, what we learn along the way, what could be improved, and not shying away from constructive feedback. When I talk to students and I say, tell me how it's going, and they're like, oh, it's going great. And I'm like, and then I pause and they're like, do you really want to know? And I'm like, yes, I honestly want to know. I can't help, we as a community can't help improve something if we're not responsive and receptive to constructive feedback. I know there's a lot of complaining that happens in our community. That's sort of, the way it is. But in some cases, we should do both things. We should change the culture so that, yes, we give constructive feedback. And we as leaders, we accept that, right? We own it. We're accountable. And we, change in the ways that we can. But we also have to change in the ways so that we also create a culture of giving people kudos, right? Admonishing other people for the small wins and successes that they have, so that together we have a balanced community or culture of feedback, not just the negative, because the negative will beat you down and wear you down. But if we're holding each other accountable, but also congratulating people on their successes, more of us will elevate, right? Rising tides lift all boats, rather than sort of beating. And we see more progress, we see more wins, and we see lifted spirits, to be honest. And as people's spirits in the community lift, there's so much more. That's where creativity is born from.
And
Man,
that's why
you got
we
good
need to
university
let them
president.
know. Wow.
I mean,
Isn't she
that,
fabulous?
you said so much there. What people say, half or some is better than all or none, right? I mean, these are the things that we grew up with. But I mean, that is, and we only have 5 minutes, so I'm going to ask this last one and let you close out, because the last thing you said is the most important. Like, we have a rebellious, fireborn spirit, but who are we fighting? Who are we fighting? How can we, 'cause, I listen to people and constructive feedback. I like to hear what I'm doing wrong. but it's how you say it and what you're proposing to do about it, and understanding the priorities that may come before it. How can we as a community support one another better? You could start at Hugo, we walk down.
I think we have to just listen to each other. We do a lot of talking past each other, talking about each other, but we don't listen well. We hear, but we don't listen, right? And if we take the time to really understand where someone is coming from, and you just said something, we all have the same goals in mind. I could get to Red Hook from downtown by going over Skyline, or I could go over Freedom Hoy. And because you want to go Freedom Hoy and I want to go Skyline, we can't be at war. Just meet me at Red Hook, right? And if we start taking that kind of approach to life and how we go about working together and not fighting because we have a different mindset how we're gonna get there, we're gonna be all right.
You'll be all right.
But we just gotta stop the infighting, because we're fighting ourselves.
Yeah.
I also think we need to embrace the generational gap, or, right now in the workplace, we have at least 3 different generations working in one place. And how do we work together with the digital age, with, us? We don't have any young people up here, Governor.
Yeah.
Young,
You mean
okay.
young?
Younger. But I think we need to collaborate. We need to make sure Workforce Development Board, next time we have a millennial up here, or, we need that perspective. All right, I got some claps in the back. I think we all just have to collaborate better, because we all have much to share. And as Hugo said, we're not working together. So let's all get in a room. Let's all get together in one place and figure it out.
Sessions like this are definitely a start, because many aspects of the community, many kinds of community people are gathered here. We're all listening together, and the message is going forth into the community. We need to follow up.
Right.
We need to send ambassadors from the government, from the chamber, from the community at large, go into our schools. I'm telling you, volunteer at a school, do an hour or 2 a week. It's so rewarding, and the kids will love you. Absolutely love you. But if we follow up and communicate like we're doing today, I think that's a huge start.
Huge. Dr. George, you have the most young people in the territory in one place.
Oh, yeah, and I love them. And so the idea of, I think, cross-sector collaboration, right? I spend majority of my career in healthcare and, of course, in higher education. And the most that I've learned is when I've embraced talking to other people from different disciplines. Even now as president, I'm learning so much about energy from our Center for Green Technology and Greg Guanell and Janine and others, but really talking to others outside of your immediate sphere so that you can get different perspectives. That's the only way we can think outside the box.
Right.
If we stay within our boxes, within our silos, then it's going to be the same old, It's going to be status quo. But the idea of cross-sector collaboration, right? One of the studies I did when I was in Alabama was a statewide project focusing on the impact of housing on health for people with HIV. I didn't know anything about housing other than, okay, you either have a house or you don't. But there are more to that, right? And so I learned from my colleagues in the housing field about housing stability and sort of, imminent homelessness versus anyway. But my point is we can learn so much more from each other, right? I am an expert at what I'm an expert at.
Right.
You are an expert at something else. You are the expert at something else. You're an expert. And we can learn from each other. And only then we see more brought to the table, right? So giving people a seat at the table, an opportunity, doesn't have to, of course, be a formal sort of, business-like table. But whether it's the millennials, whether it's students, whether it's whoever, but having a collaborative approach to everything that we're doing and really, having that intersectionality so that we can have better ideas and better solutions, I think is definitely the way to go.
And that was beautiful. And what better and easier community to do it in? We live so closely together. When you sit down to dinner, you could be with the governor and the janitor, at the same table, and you will never know it, because we just respect people as people first, valuing people, taking risks, adjusting to change, honoring the different generations, and incorporating the voices of people in our community in what we do as we support for a better Virgin Islands. Awesome panel. I'd like to thank them again. I told you it was going to be good.